Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Thursday, June 26th. I hope you're all doing well. What a Sick Podcast draft extravaganza show we have lined up for tomorrow night. Shane Gaumont and Master Control will bring up our flyer to show you a little bit later on in the show. But tomorrow night, note a special time. The Sick Podcast will start at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. At 5 p.m. Eastern Time, the Sick Podcast special draft show tomorrow. It's going to be unbelievable. I have the lineup here. I could read it out to you right now. There you have it. Craig Button will join us right off the bat at 5 p.m. Nicolas Cloutier at 5:30 p.m. Simon Snake Boisvert at 6 p.m. Pierre Maguire at 6:30 p.m. Kyle Woodleaf of the Red Line Report at 7 p.m. At 8 p.m., Brock Otten of McKean's. Brian Wild of Global TV Montreal at 8:30 p.m. Grant McCagg of Recruits at 9 p.m. And Anthony Martineau of TVA Sports will be on site at the Bell Center. And should anything break, the Canadiens make some moves, he'll join us on the podcast. It's going to be unbelievable. I hope to see you all there. I'm going to get my beauty sleep tonight because tomorrow is going to be a very, very big day. I expect to be on for at least 4.5 hours nonstop. All right? And the last time I did 4.5 hours nonstop was the honeymoon. All right, okay, but that's another story for another day, but I digress. All right, okay. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by several sponsors, and very much appreciate them. Betway is one. Get a free bet. Go all the way with Betway. Get a free bet up to $200 for his bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. I'd also like to give a shout out to Fruiterie de Lard. It's a family-run business, a mainstay in the LaSalle community. Since 1995, they're proud to continue offering the same fresh foods and flavors that they have for the past 30 years. I went in a couple of days ago, by the way. They have in the deli section, they have these cold cuts, which are amazing. One of which is this turkey that comes from Italy. It's fantastic. And I don't usually like turkey, but I love this one. Anyway, they continue to offer the same fresh foods and flavors they have for the past 30 years. From fresh fruits and produce delivered daily to an ever-expanding assortment of deli meats, cheeses, and sandwiches, you'll find personalized service and friendly faces that make you feel like family at Fruiterie de Lard. I'll talk to you about some of our other partners and sponsors a little bit later. Without further ado, today was a big day because earlier this afternoon at 3 p.m., Montreal Canadiens Executive Vice President Hockey Operations, Jeff Gorton, met with members of the media the way he did 1 year ago in Vegas on the day before the draft to kind of set the table. And Stu Cowan was there to take it all in. And Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com joins us right now. Stu, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tony. How about you?
I'm doing extremely well. I like talking with everybody. I love talking with Jeff Gorton. I'd like to get your thoughts. I just find he's an interesting guy. Every time he says something, I find it's pertinent. I find there's stuff to go with there, especially when you're in the business that we're in, which is sports media. Your thoughts on Jeff Gorton and what he had to say earlier today?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, Tony. He's the kind of guy you'd love to go have a couple of beers with one night. I know he's got a good sense of humor. I know Dan Robertson has done that before, gone out with him for a couple of drinks and said, just what I thought, just a fun guy to be around, a great guy, and a smart guy, a smart GM.
By the way, I bumped into Dan earlier.
Of hockey operations.
Bumped into Dan earlier today, by the way.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Costco Point Claire.
All right. One of my favorite people.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, he was there and it was a scrum, which is maybe about 8 reporters around. And the main thing coming out of it is that he's sticking to his plan. He's patient. He wants to make this team better, obviously, if he can. But as he said, we're not going to do anything stupid. And he talked about how, some moves, making a move just for the sake of making a move can backfire. Carl Alsner is a perfect example of that, going back to Marc Bergevin's days after Andrei Markov left and desperate move on July 1st, signing Carl Alsner. We all know how that worked out. 5-year contract, had to buy him out of the last 2. And the other interesting that came out, he said, I asked him a question about, going into last season, being in the mix was the goal. And I thought it was a realistic goal at the time. And I think fans agreed with it also. They went beyond that by making the playoffs, losing in the first round to Washington. And I meant, fans are probably going to be a little less patient this year. And he's going to just stay patient. As he even said, not making the playoffs next season would not be a disappointment for him. They obviously want to, and they're going to try everything they can at the draft and in free agency, et cetera, to try and do that. But they're not going to panic and make a move just for the sake of making a move. He repeated again, their goal is to have a team that's competitive and going to make the playoff many years in a row and be a contender for the Stanley Cup. And they're not at that point yet.
It was you that asked him a question about what are the chances of trading 1 or 2 of your first round picks.
Yeah.
Shane Gaumont at Master Control. Do we have the clip by any chance?
We've had conversations about that and the other way too, to move down. So it's just about the cost. Right now at 16, 17, I think we'd be happy with that. But there are some players, top 10 that we like a lot. And if opportunity arises, we might do that or even move up a couple spots. We'll see. But we're looking at everything. And, it's a decent draft, some pretty quality players. So we'll see what happens.
It's not everyone that would be that honest with you, right?
No,
we're looking to do that. He's,
And the looking at everything line, I think, is the best line. Like, they are looking at everything. And that doesn't mean they're going to do something just for the sake of doing it. As I mentioned earlier, they're looking at everything, looking at every possibility. As you said, our goal is to push this along and make this team better next season. But the big goal is to make this team better a couple of years down the road for an extended period of time. And they're sticking to their plan. They're sticking to their guns. And I think that's the right thing to do. Some fans are here, geez, if we don't make the playoffs, it's not a disappointment. They weren't expected to make the playoffs last year, right? That goal of being in the mix was I thought, a good goal, a reasonable goal. They went past that. But, they really did surpass themselves last season when you look at everything that happened. And sometimes doing nothing is the best thing to do, right? They did nothing at the trade deadline last year, and that helped them get into the playoffs, helped these young players gain the experience of being in the playoffs. So yes, in a perfect world, they will come up with some kind of a trade or some kind of a free agent signing that is going to really boost them to another level next season and get the playoffs. But if that move isn't there, they're not going to make another move just for the sake of making a move.
All right. Okay. He talked about moving up, but we also talked about moving down.
Mm-hmm.
His thoughts on that. Let's hear if we hear from him. We got that? Do we have that? We're looking for the clip. Do we have it? Discussions about moving up or down in the draft order?
If you don't have it, I actually have it.
Okay, that's the one that we actually just played. All right, okay. But there was another one, though, right, where he said that there were both possibilities, right? They were looking at both?
Yeah, I have the quote right here from my transcript. It says, we've had conversations about that and the other way, too, to move down. It's just about the cost. Right now, it's 16, 17. I think we'd be happy with that. But there are some. Oh, sorry. I think that is the same quote.
It's the same one. It's the same one. Yeah. Okay. No, because there was another one that he asked about. He was asked about as well, whether they're going to move up and he answered it a second time, I think. Okay. But one of the things that he was asked about, of course, was the pressure to draft the Quebecois. Mm-hmm. Most have Justin Carbonneau going around 16, 17. On most lists, He should be available when the Canadiens are set to pick. So he was asked about that, the pressure to draft a Quebec-born player. Let's hear from Jeff Gorton.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting that Quebec has some guys that are in the top, but a little higher than the past couple of years. So that's great. But we don't feel pressure to do that, to take players. I feel like our team, if you look at us in Montreal and Laval, even in Three Rivers, if you look at our staff members, I think we're pretty well, we have a lot of Quebecois, accounted for. We're not going to just take a player because of where they're from. I work for the Bruins. Well, everyone always said you got to take somebody from Boston. Well, we didn't do that either. So I think that would be at a disadvantage to do something like that. But we would love to have, really good Quebecois on our team.
If you have a good ear, you can hear that the volume was actually going up and down. This is not on us. It was the Canadiens were live on social media. They were live on their own Twitter feed when it was going on. And there was a technical difficulty actually where the line or the volume was cutting in and cutting out. So our apologies, but we have.
Yeah, I was surprised they did it as a scrum, Tony, instead of having Gorton up at the podium like they usually do at Martin.
I wasn't, because he was a scrum last year.
Mm-hmm.
So
they were on the road last year though. They weren't.
I hear you. I hear you. Why do you think they had it as a scrum?
I don't know. I mean, it would have been better for us, and I think it would have been better for him too. More comfortable sitting behind the table and easier for us. But it is what it is.
All right. Okay. So, what's your gut tell you? Because he was asked about what they want to do. And there's a challenge, though, regarding buying and selling, right? And he talked about that. Let's play the clip regarding selling going down.
I think it's different because there's definitely a lot of conversations going on around the league. But I think that the difference now is I believe there's a number of teams that are really trying to take another step. And, there's probably less sellers than normal this time of year. So it's pretty competitive, but there's a lot of conversations.
All right. Talking about the fact that there's less sellers this time around. We've been hearing that for a couple of weeks right now. Take a look. Anaheim wants to make themselves better. San Jose want to make themselves better. Teams that have been rebuilding that you would think would not want to make themselves better right away are making themselves better right away. And so that means there's less sellers on the market, which is going to make Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes' job a little bit more challenging tomorrow night and on Saturday, Stu.
Yeah, leading up to this draft, I've thought all along they would trade one, if not both, of their first-round picks. But listening to them today and as we get closer, I'm starting to think they might just end up keeping the two picks. And he was also asked today about Peterka and Trevor, Zegras, guys like that have been traded recently. Obviously, he can't comment on those players, but it did say – his exact quote is, all I can tell you is that anytime there's a player move, we kind of know who's available. We study everything, we look at everything, and we're happy to know that we know what's going on around the league. But commenting about players on other teams, I can't do that. So they obviously looked into Peterka and they looked into Zegras, and they're looking into everything, as he said. And they make their decision at the end, whether it's good, not just for this season. That's the key, right? They're not just looking at this upcoming season. They're looking at the big picture. And they're going to keep that in mind with everything they do or don't do leading up to the draft. But after listening to them today, I think they might try really hard to move up. And if they can't, I think they'll just take the two picks that they have at 16 and 17.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and move up too, because for the most part, what are most scouts saying? There's a big drop off after 10.
Yeah.
And he understands that too. And he admitted it as well, that there is.
Yeah, he said that the next 14 guys or whatever is sort of the same, right, as far as potential.
All right, okay. Let's get back to Jeff Gorton. And, he's looking for something very particular in the Montreal market out of these players. What is it? Let's hear from him.
I think that certainly in this market, anybody we take into account the pressure points. This is a hockey market. People love hockey, and more people than not know about hockey. So we're sensitive to that. Whether we're acquiring an NHL player or drafting a player, we want to understand who can handle certain situations.
And I guess we can understand that now. We think about some of the questions that they asked these players at the combine, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the players that were interviewed said, yeah, some of the toughest kept questions came from the Montreal Canadiens. And Jeff Gorton tells us it's a particular hockey market, and it's a big pressure market, and it's not for everybody. And we want to try and find out who can handle the pressure and who can play in this market. And now I think people understand why they asked the questions that they asked.
And that factored into them taking Slafkovsky. And they talked about that. And when you look at Slafkovsky through the ups and downs he's had since joining the Canadiens, for a kid as young as he is, he's handled it really well, including dealing with the media. Like he doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. He's been really able to, with that spotlight on a kid like that. Grew up sort of used to it in his home country. He's a big star there already. But that's one of the things that impressed me most about Slafkovsky since he came here, just his ability to handle the highs and lows and not let it get to him. Whereas you look at maybe like a Kotkaniemi in the past, how it did get to him. Jonathan Drouin, how it did get to him. But Slafkovsky seems to enjoy the spotlight of playing in Montreal. And I think those are the and Lane Hudson's the same way. And they have other guys in the room like that. So that, Cole Caulfield re-signing here, right? They got a lot of guys who seem to not enjoy playing in Montreal.
There's a question that they're usually asked every year, Stu, and I didn't quite catch if he was asked it earlier today or not, and that is, are the Montreal Canadiens going to draft for best player available, best talent available, or are they going to draft for need?
No, he wasn't asked that question, but with that gap at center, the lack of depth at center. I wrote a column yesterday on Jack Nesbitt, center, Windsor Spitfires, ranked 17th, right behind Justin Carbonneau, 6'4", 185 pounds, needs to fill out more like Michael Hage last year. But I did an interview with his coach, and his coach was saying that he's a 200-foot player, and he says he has that switch where he can be nasty. He goes to the paint hard, the blue paint, good on face-offs. So that's a guy that I'm thinking that the Canadiens must have quite a bit of interest in if he's still available at that spot.
Yeah. And, I ask it because we saw what happened, right? Mm-hmm. Laval got pushed around. They lost to a team of men, like Pascal Vincent said it. And the Canadiens they were victims of a lot of big time nasty hits from Ovechkin and Tom Wilson and company versus the Washington Capitals. The Canadiens want to get grittier. They want to get bigger. They want to get stronger. They want to get nastier. When you go on the market trying to look for those players, there's a lot of teams that don't want to give up those players because they too realize that it's a recipe to success in the playoffs. And that's why I'm wondering, when you pick third, fourth, or fifth, you want to pick the best player available. When you're picking 16 and 17, and all the scouts are telling you that there's a big drop-off after 10, well, the best player available might not be that much different from addressing your team need at that point at 16, 17. So I'm curious as to which direction they're going to go in that respect.
Yeah, and I think, best player available, I think is a good idea when you're drafting. But if, as you said, if there's not a big difference between the guy who's a center, like if it comes down to Carbonneau and Nesbitt, one's a right winger, one's a center. The Canadiens haven't had luck in the past drafting Quebec players, right? Playing here in Montreal, you go back to Louis Leblanc, Eric Chouinard. So I think in that case they might lean. And it's after speaking with the Spitfires coach, there's a lot to like about this Nesbitt kid. But like Michael Hage, he's not ready to step into the NHL next season. Like most guys ranked that low down aren't. But 6'4", 185, a lot of room to build into there. He still needs to work on his skating a little bit. But as the season-ending news conference when Gorton and Hughes were talking, the compete level is one of the big things they talked about, right? Yeah, and this is a guy who has coached his compete level. They use him. He was a second-line center in Windsor this year, but on the power play, PK. He said we used them when we pulled the goalie. We used them when the other team pulled the goalie. We used them when we were 3-on-5. So it fits into that. And I also asked him about the character thing as far as being able to handle the spotlight playing in Montreal. And he said he's just a fun-loving kid. His teammates love him. He's a team-first guy. But again, he has that switch. He can be a great guy, but he has that switch on the ice where he can get nasty. And that's something I think you need in today's NHL and something the Canadiens are looking for.
Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all North America, driven to be different. Also, I want to talk to you about Playground, and in particular, the Rail, because there's 3 tasty reasons to visit the Rail. Mondays as of 4 p.m., dive into 2 lobster tails for just $22, served with rice, veggies, garlic butter, and warm biscuit. Thursdays from 4 p.m., sink your teeth into their Surf and Turf Special, an 8-ounce New York strip with shrimp, fries, and pepper sauce for only $19. And Friday from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., enjoy any burger, sandwich, pizza, or main for just $7. Certain conditions apply. All you need is a valid Playground Players Card, and it's free. Deals this good are worth the trip only at the Rail inside the Playground complex. Visit playground.ca for details. And you see that fridge that you saw at the beginning of the show? You don't see it now. Well, that was the fridge. If you can zoom out, Shane, can you zoom out so we can see the fridge right now? Look at that. That's Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the summer with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. Jeff Gorton said, when asked about improving his team, he said, there's something important that we have to do or probably should avoid doing. Let's hear from Jeff Gorton again.
Listen, when you go into a summer in a situation where our team's at, we would obviously like to improve our team, and I think we've been pretty vocal about that. But I think just as important is not to make a mistake. You know, we have a team that we think is coming together. We think highly of where we're going, and we have we think we're moving in the right direction. But we do want to improve the team. But I would say to you that making a mistake and bringing in something that doesn't fit our timelines or a player that doesn't fit in our room would probably would be just as bad as if we went the other ways.
You want to elaborate on making a mistake, Stu? What is he talking about exactly when he says making a mistake? A mistake.
As I mentioned earlier, Carl Alsner signing on July 1st. Right? There's a saying that most mistakes in the NHL by general managers are made on July 1st, and I think that's true. So in making a mistake, they've really put a big focus on culture along with Marty St. Louis, right? And they've got, being in that locker room on a regular basis, they got a lot of good character guys. They got a good young character guys. And when Nesbitt's coach was talking about him being a character guy, a fun guy to be around, a nice guy, but he has that switch to become nasty. The first person I thought of, Caden Gooley. He has that, right? You talk with Caden Gooley, one of the nicest young men you'll meet. Character guy, but on the ice he can be nasty. So I think it's just if there's a free agent out there or a trade to be made, and it's someone that they don't know if he's going to fit in with the room, or if he's maybe that inability to play in the Montreal spotlight or something like that, they're gonna take a pass and they're gonna say no. We'll wait and see what comes down the road. They're not in a position now going into year 4 of a rebuild that they have to rush anything, right? They've got time ahead of them still moving forward. They still got. And next year's draft, they're still going to, if they don't do anything this year, they still have lots of prospects, picks they can trade next year or during the season. So as you said, this is a big weekend for them and a big summer for them, but they're not going to force the issue if they don't get something that they think is going to, or someone that they think is going to fit into this room and make this team better, not just next year, but for the extended future. When
he talks, doesn't fit into this team, I think they're talking about veterans again, because they really want to try and add players that are pretty much going to be in the prime of their careers. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, that 23, 24, 25, 26 age group that they're all in, right? They want them all to sort of reach their peak at the same time. We saw Nick Suzuki this year take another step, right? We saw Cole Caulfield take another step. They're hoping they still have more steps they can take, and they're at that point in their career where, yes, Nick Suzuki can be better. Cole Caulfield can be better. Caden Gooley can be better. Arbor Jacki can be better. They've all taken steps improving, and you're right. I think they want to continue along that line with players in that age group. That's why I wondered with the Zegras thing if the Canadiens might have had interest in him because he fit into that age group, right? Played with Cole Caulfield, but it didn't take much for Philadelphia to get him. Ryan Poehling and a couple of draft picks, and as Jeff Gorton said, they know everything that's going on in the league, or believe they do as far as trade. So they would have known Zegras was available. They would have known what it would have taken to get him, and maybe they just thought it's not going to be a fit.
All right. Okay. When you talked about Zegras, when I take a look at what the return was for Zegras, I don't think the Canadiens were that interested. I think basically
Yeah.
They've
You think they could have offered more?
They've decided on a culture, and he's not part of that culture that they're trying to build here.
Yeah, the Canadiens could have definitely offered more than Ryan Poehling and a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick if they really wanted him that bad.
No doubt about it. There's a name that came up earlier today. Marco D'Amico reported it first, and he brought up saying the Canadiens are interested in Noah Dobson. Of course, right-handed defenseman. Talk about 6'4", over 200, being in the prime of your career with the New York Islanders. But his contract is up. He makes $4 million a year. He's looking for a hefty pay increase that's going to more than double in his world. We'll see what happens. And once again, he's RFA. That was later reported as well by Nicolas Martineau of TV Sport, who heard the same thing. Kevin Dubé of Journal du Québec reported as well, heard the same thing. When 3 or 4 people are reporting the same thing and it's coming out, you'd have to think, A, it's true, and B, someone's whispering in their ear, and that someone is probably the same person in all 3 cases here. So, look, he's a good player, and Lord knows the Montreal Canadiens could use him. But, I'm not so sure that Matthew Darche wants to part ways with Noah Dobson. Mm-hmm. He already told Horvat and Barzal, you're not going anywhere. I'm keeping you. If he wants to keep them, you would think he wants to keep his goalie too, and you would think that he wants to keep Noah Dobson.
Yeah, and it takes 2 to tango, though, right, in negotiating. And Dobson was mentioned, 25 years old, right? Right in that age group the Canadiens look at, 6'4", 200, add size, a right-hand shot. Be a great fit. But, yeah, it'd be hard to imagine the Islanders not wanting to keep him. But maybe the player doesn't want to stay there, and he's looking to move on.
All right, but if you go out and get a player like that, it's hard to imagine the Canadiens not parting ways with one of their better prospects on defense.
Without a doubt. It would be you're looking Logan Mayo or
Reinbacher.
Reinbacher. Yeah, Reinbacher would be. Although there's still that question with him with his injury, right? There's, but yeah, it's going to take something to get something. So it would be interesting to see what the Canadiens would be willing to give up if he is available, and if Matthew Darche decides he's going to move him.
Speaking of which, do we have a clip on the free agent markets?
I don't know. We'll see. Every year is different. I think that the trade market, the rush is that usually when you're talking about trading for picks and doing something right now, the other team is interested in those picks. Once the draft goes away, there's less talk of that, right? It becomes more of a player-for-player discussions. As far as free agency, it usually, in my experience, like the top players in free agency kind of dictate the timing. Like if they go quick, then everything kind of falls. If some top players are taking a while to go, then everything kind of it changes the timelines.
All right, changes the timelines, he says. Speaking of free agency, I know you said that a lot of mistakes are made on July 1st. If the Canadiens set out to accomplish what they want to accomplish, Stu, do you think it's going to be over the next couple of days at the draft, or it's going to be in free agency, or will it be in the way of an offer sheet?
I think it's going to be at the draft. Well, I thought they would maybe make a move before the draft, like we've seen these other moves happen, and they haven't. So it's sort of they're going to try and do something at the draft. I'm convinced they're going to try and do something at the draft.
They always have, right? This management team always seems to want to do something at the draft. Last year they made a trade where they ended up acquiring the 21st pick, and with that pick, they drafted Michael Hage.
Yep.
The year before that, they went out, they made a trade, and they acquired Alex Newhook. The year before that, they went out, they made a trade, they acquired Kirby Dach. They always seems to do something.
If they don't do something at the draft, it won't be from lack of effort, right? That's they're going in there, and the thing is, they're so good at Hughes and Gorton are so good at not letting it leak what they're going to do. Like I don't remember anybody mentioning Alexandre Carrier as a trade possibility before they pulled off that trade last season. That sort of came out of the blue. So that the smart GM is honest. But as honest as he can be with us, right? He's not going to say everything in a news conference, every player you might be looking at or whatnot. But I think they're more likely to do something at the draft. And if nothing happens at the draft, we'll see what happens in free agency. But again, they're not going to jump in they're not going to do anything stupid, as Gorton said.
So you know what? We heard about this 2025 draft that's coming up. Once again, it falls off after the top 10. The Canadiens have pick 16 and 17. We'll see what happens. How about the 2026 draft? Let's hear Jeff Gorton on that.
We have a good feel for that. And, the hard part is it's always, again, everyone always says next year is going to be better. And then you get to next year and it's not necessarily better. It's just the way the business seems to work. But obviously there's some exciting players there in that draft. But we know the quality is going to be good at the top there next year. But, we haven't thought too much about that.
All right. So we got a pretty good feel, he says, for the 2026 draft. So we'll see what happens. He doesn't like the fact that it's decentralized. The draft he gave us.
No, he doesn't. They're doing what the NFL and the NBA did. And as he said, as Gorton said today, it's so much easier when everybody's in the same city and you can just walk over and talk to the GM, or you can walk over and talk to the player agent. Everybody's in the same building. Everybody's there at the same time. Whereas now in this draft, they're going to be working out of their offices at the Bell Center. So there'll be a lot of phone calls going back and forth. And I wonder if this is going to be the last year they do it, because Gorton obviously doesn't like it, and he wasn't shy about saying that today. And I imagine there's other guys around the league who feel the same way.
You know what? He said the general managers talked about it, decided to give it a try. Doesn't mean they won't go back. I hope they go back. Just because this is the way that they do it in football doesn't mean it's the way you got to do it in the National Hockey League. The NHL is the NHL. It's got its own culture, and it's not because the NFL did something that they have to do it. Not in this case anyway. No.
Well, and part of it is money saving, right? Which some of the other teams, you're not flying out all your GMs and your everybody else. So it's a money saving thing also. But to me, it's what makes the NHL different. One of the things that makes the NHL different and unique is the draft. And, also all the media would be out there usually. So now it's sort of split. Some media, I'm sure, are out now. Some of the Montreal media are in LA. Other guys are here staying with Gorton and Hughes. I like it better the other way. Gorton does also. But the NHL is going to try it this way, and we'll see what goes on. But I think this will be the last year they do it this way.
Stu, do you think the Canadiens are going to go out? You talked about that second line centerman. Do you think they've officially given up on Kirby Dach being that guy?
No, not 100%. He was asked about Dach today, and he said he's having a good summer. He said he was in town recently working out and seeing the doctors, and said he was ahead of schedule. Have they given up 100%? I don't think so. Kirby Dach's still young, right? But I think they realize it's unlikely now that he's going to develop into that role, and they're obviously looking for somebody else to fill it. And I think they're maybe looking at him more as if he progresses enough that they decide to keep him beyond this season, the last year of his contract, that maybe his future is more as a winger than as a centerman. But if they aren't able to acquire anybody to fill that second center hole during the offseason, I think they try him there again next season and see if they have any more luck.
Let's hear Jeff Gorton on Kirby Dach's summer.
Dach's summer's been really good. We saw him. He came into town about 10 days ago. He was here for a week working out and seeing the doctors. He looks great and ahead of schedule. So far, so good.
Wow. I guess that's good news, huh? Is that good news? Good. Ahead of schedule.
Yeah. That's and they mentioned at the end of the season in the news conference that they spoke with Dach, and they told him like how important next season is to him and how much he's got to show up at training camp, not just in great shape physically, but mentally. And I think mentally he had struggles last season coming off of that major knee injury. That's understandable, going into the corner and wondering if your knee is going to blow it again, or a little hesitant here and there. But this is a huge year for Kirby Dach. He's only 24. I mean, it's easy to forget that he's been in the league for so long, since he was right out of junior. But yeah, it's a huge year for him. And I think Kirby Dach realizes that, and the lessons he learned last season, both physically and mentally, like going back, he hopefully realizes some of the mistakes maybe he made last season, and recovery, and maybe the mental state of mind he was in when he came back wasn't where it should have been. But again, talk about him as a second line center. I don't think they've 100% given up on that possibility.
Stu, you talked about the Zegras trade, which was pulled off a couple of days ago. Zegras going to Philadelphia, of course, and Paling and a couple of picks going to Anaheim. There's a debate there whether the Montreal Canadiens could have used Zegras, and there's a debate as to how much the Canadiens could have offered. There was another deal that was done earlier today. Let's bring it up if we can. Buffalo receives defenseman Michael Kesselring and forward Josh Doan from Utah. In return, Utah receives forward J.J. Peterka. Peterka is a guy who had a real good season, Stu. Here's a guy who put up 27 goals and 68 points on a terrible team. His totals are up from 32 points in his first year to 50 points in his second year to 68 points in his third year. He scored 27 this year. He scored 28 the year before. This is a right winger who shoots left, who can play either wing. He's not the biggest at 6 foot, about 195, but he's not the smallest either. He's in the prime of his career. He's actually not even in the prime of his career yet. He's 23 years old. He'll probably enter that prime in 3 or 4 years from now. Why do you think the Canadiens weren't in on this player?
I'm guessing they weren't willing to give up what Buffalo was willing to give up, or something similar to that. Or, as we mentioned earlier, maybe they just, I don't know Peterka about him as a person or a player character-wise, but maybe they just thought he wouldn't be a good fit in the room. But I think it's more likely that whatever Buffalo was asking for him might have been too much. And also, Buffalo might have been reluctant to trade him to a team that they compete against, right?
Well, I was just going to mention that if there's any other factor, it's got to be that it's within the same division. And, if the Buffalo Sabres want to make the playoffs, you would think that the Canadiens are one of the teams that they're going to identify that actually made the playoffs this year that they want to try and knock out. So there's another reason why it didn't happen. I would imagine another reason is the Canadiens don't have a very young defenseman like Kesselring as well that they're willing to offer up at this time. Kesselring's is a really good defenseman, and I think he came off of a 30-point season. 25 years old, 6'5", 215, shoots right. That's the kind of defenseman I would imagine the Canadiens would have loved to have acquired themselves.
Yep. Yeah, it's without a doubt. And as you said, they look into everything. They know what's going on. And unfortunately, he can't comment on players with other teams or what they've done. But it would have been a good fit for sure.
Stu, busy tomorrow night? Are you going to be at the Bell Center?
I will be at the Bell Center. Ken Hughes is going to be made available after the first round. So myself and Arpon Basu and Eric Engels and all the guys who cover the beat, we're all going to be sitting there tomorrow night watching the draft on TV at the Bell Center and waiting to see what happens, unless something happens before the draft, which is also possible.
Well, I'm going live at 5 p.m., and I'm probably going to go on until about 9:30 p.m., I would imagine, give or take. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to have time to get to the Bell Center by 10 p.m. when Kent Hughes is probably going to speak, if he's going to wait till the end of the draft. Obviously, you would think so. You would think Kent will probably speak after 10 o'clock, right? Because the draft will probably end at 10.
That's what the Canadiens said. He'll speak after the first round of the draft.
We'll see. I may or may not see you tomorrow, and I may or may not have a voice if I do, because it'll be at least 4.5 hours of NHL draft coverage. Once again, if we can bring up the flyer, special time tomorrow night, jot it down. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time. Craig Button, Nicolas Cloutier, Pierre Maguire, Grant McCagg, Brian Wilde, Kyle Woodleaf, Simon Snake Boisvert, Brock Otten will all join me. And Anthony Martineau of TVA Sports will be hanging out at the Bell Center on site next to the Canadiens' War Room, which I think we have a picture of that War Room, actually, which we'll bring up. There you have it. It's a pretty nice War Room, to tell you the truth. Anthony Martineau will be hanging out outside that War Room, and should the Canadiens make a move, we'll call on him to join us on the podcast. Stu, thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you again in the next couple of days.
All right, Tony, good luck tomorrow. Hang in there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com. Special thanks to all of our sponsors. Betway is one, as well as Fruiterie de Lard, La Bittt at Tibi, Playground, and Energy Transportation Group. Leave us a 5-star review. It's our way of feeling the love. Once again, special podcast tomorrow night at 5 p.m. You have no reason, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, to listen or watch any other coverage, any other podcast, anywhere in the world other than the Sick Podcast tomorrow night, because the star-studded lineup that we have cannot be matched, I don't think, anyway. Ciao for now. Hope to talk to you again, and hope to see you in big numbers tomorrow night for a special live draft show starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. Right here, it's the Sick Podcast.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. La Vida TB, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.